Hello everyone, I'm Yandie Chien. I am the lead singer of Crazy Loser in a Box. You can call me Yandie, you might actually know me by a variety of other names. That's okay. I do a lot of things under a lot of different names because that's just what I do. This is a new series. It is called The Controversial Thot, and what that is me voicing my opinions on things. They may be unpopular opinions, especially in today's socio-political climate. I've become very disillusioned with social justice activism, the way that it's practiced nowadays. I've been experiencing political burnout on Facebook and Tumblr and things like that. I kind of just want to focus on myself and my own projects, but I know that if I don't speak out about certain things, when they're trendy, I'll get called a bad person, so I might as well just steer into that, steer into the skid? Is that how that goes? I might as well just steer into that skid. So, today, I will be talking about SJWs and thought policing, and that's thinky thoughts, not... Anyway, this is heavily scripted. I'm reading it off of my cell phone. I wrote it out at 2 or 3 in the morning because I couldn't sleep, and all of these ideas were just going through my head, so I had to get them down on paper, and now I'm going to be talking about them in this video. You can let me know in the comments what you think. You can let me know via email. These issues might also come up in the show that I help run under a different name, which is also on this channel. It is Deceiver of Fools. We have A Cycle of Suck and Fail, which is October 2008, and then we have Because Fuck You Logic, which is November 2008. So, anyway, let's get started. Social justice warriors and thought policing. I've been loosely involved in social justice activism throughout my 20s, but lately I'm becoming rapidly disillusioned by it. In theory, it's meant to be about uplifting people who are disenfranchised and warning each other about problematic behavior traps not to fall into, which is fine. The problem comes when we start moving away from that and more towards attacking each other for not being good enough at purity. I recently came across a post by Facebook page Vagina Devil Magic, which honestly, it's a great name. That's actually the reason I follow that page. Anyway, it states something to the effect of, if your partner is homophobic, you're not a real ally. And that bothered me, an actual member of the LGBTQIA+ community, for several reasons. Firstly, as I stated in a comment, I am not responsible for the behavior of anyone other than myself. Implying that I should attempt to control other people's behavior when literally all good therapy goes against that is wrong. Furthermore, someone else's thoughts and behaviors do not affect my sincerity or compassion. I pointed this out to the tune of Anger React, and some replies I didn't actually bother to read because it's not worth sacrificing my peace of mind to read what I'm sure are mean-spirited ad hominem attacks. I say right after saying, if you have feelings or thoughts about my videos, feel free to comment. Yeah. But no, YouTube is a different platform than Facebook, so I find it easier to justify going through the comments and actually reading them in depth and responding to them here. I've gotten some mean comments about some of my songs that I've just responded to without getting upset. Anyway. Secondly, it implies that people who are stuck in an abusive relationships with homophobic partners aren't valid enough to be considered real allies. Also, I fucking hate gatekeeping. That wasn't in the script, but it just came to mind. I was watching a video by Rachel Oates last night, whom I really love. I really admire her take on things. And she was reviewing a book by someone... I remember her first name was Polly, I think Polly Vernon, that basically warns against gatekeeping. So I really agreed with that. It really spoke to me, and I'm glad that I saw that before posting this video so that I could mention it. Anyway. For those of you lucky enough not to know, it can actually be quite difficult to escape a bad relationship for a variety of reasons, ranging from uncomfortable to downright dangerous. On the extreme end, people have been killed for leaving or attempting to leave abusive partners. And so my point there is that telling someone that they're not a real ally because they're staying with an abusive partner because they're afraid they could get killed for leaving, that's terrible. Don't do that. Thirdly, at the risk of making everything about myself, the person through whose eyes I experience the world, I feel it erased those of us who are part of the community but who have partners who, while not outright homophobic, say some problematic stuff out of ignorance and who resist redirection. Listen, I'm not going to dump my partner because he says fag lord in reference to video game enemies, or because he finds the psychology behind trans and non-binariness boring and confusing. I myself am, here's my snowflake points, bigender, panromantic, and demisexual, and while he may not comprehend or believe all that, and he thought that it was silly that the hospital staff asked me my pronouns while I was in labor, he's otherwise good to me, and he's good to our son. In fact, he came in here right before I started filming to let me know that he is making me dinner. And I shooed him out because I was about to start a video. Anyway, this leads to my fourth point, not the part about the dinner, but our infant son having two stable parents is much more important to me than upholding someone else's ideology. My priority is the safety of my family, and I feel that the whole concept of telling people whether they're valid as allies and by extension whether they're valid members of the community comes from a place of privilege and ignorance. It's also a great way to turn away people who are ignorant but interested in learning more so that they can be better allies. My fifth point is that, as I said, my partner isn't actually homophobic. He's just ignorant and resists feedback. However, people who believe in excluding others as allies for the behavior of their partners probably aren't going to be interested in that distinction. People's minds can get stuck in certain patterns, especially people on the spectrum, which we both are, so there's an element of ableism there too. He says uncomfortable things. I attempt to redirect him. He may or may not listen. We may or may not have that discussion again. Oh God, yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I've said, hey, you shouldn't say this thing, and he'll be like, he'll argue with me about it, then eventually he'll agree, and then he'll do it again, and, it's just his mind gets stuff like that. Last night we actually had a discussion. I was being interviewed about my pregnancy by a friend for her psychology class, and he used a word that we would prefer that he not use, and I said, listen, don't use that word with her. And later he said that someone that he has to censor himself around isn't someone he's going to be interested in interacting with that much. And to a degree, I agree, because it's very difficult, especially if you have trouble with words like I sometimes do, to limit your vocabulary when you already have trouble expressing yourself. So, anyway. Like I said in point 1, I am not responsible for his behavior, and his behavior does not automatically make me any less sincere or compassionate towards others. My sixth point was actually made by someone else, who pointed out that it's not good to dehumanize people by referring to them in war terms like ally or enemy. I hadn't considered that, but it makes a lot of sense. And actually, it's one of the first things that the specific person has said that I have agreed with, so yay. Another reason I'm becoming disillusioned is because that nitpickiness about who can and cannot be deemed supportive enough also spills into discussions about sexism, racism, etc. And it's exhausting to try to keep up with. I hate gold star activism. No, I don't want a medal for being a decent person, but I would like to express my own thoughts in good faith without immediately being piled on for whatever perceived dog whistle. I was witch hunted on LiveJournal once, this was about like 9-10 years ago, for basically using words incorrectly, so I guess I had come across as insensitive, and my sister states that she's come across this issue on Tumblr as well, and has gotten into the habit of choosing her words with exhausting precision, which again, would be difficult enough if we both weren't on the autism spectrum and didn't struggle with words and abstract concepts. And if I hadn't told you that I had heavily scripted this beforehand, you could probably tell I wrote this all out, and I'm reading from a document so that I don't get sidetracked. In the script it says document on my screen, but I didn't feel like emailing it to myself, so I just have my cell phone propped up on my computer and I'm reading from my notepad. Okay. Erasure is a huge problem. And what I mean by erasure is people on their high horses within whatever community talking down to the rest of us like our real experiences don't matter. I can't really be pro-woman because I'm open about bad experiences I had with ex-girlfriends. I can't really be anti-homophobia because my partner says problematic things sometimes. Am I really bi-gender if I accept she, her as default pronouns to make things less stressful for everyone? Am I really pan-romantic if I, who is assigned female at birth, have a husband? Am I really demisexual if I have a child? Does the fact that I'm articulate sometimes really discount the fact that other times I literally cannot form words and end up expressing myself with the exact cogency of my 2-month-old? Well, he's 2.5 months now, but yeah, you get the idea. My dad is private messaging me. I will get to that later. Yeah, I'm a bad daughter. Anyway, unfortunately, what the social justice community thinks of as erasure is not having non-white or disabled or non-binary or non-straight characters within a particular setting. They assign malice to the intentions of content creators, when honestly those of us who aren't part of whichever group probably don't even put much thought into it. And if we do have a few characters from those demographics, scattered here and there, we're accused of tokenism or writing outside our experiences or false inclusion for the sake of clout. It is so tiring. Not everyone is out to get you, and some people just don't think about putting people of color or wheelchair users in their art. It doesn't mean they wish those people didn't exist, so they created this perfect world where they don't exist. That is needlessly convoluted. Most people just don't think about other people outside of their own worldview. You know, not everyone has a working theory of mind. And then there's the issue of white people telling other white people what to do. My partner is a black man, and he just brought me corn dogs, so go ahead and say something problematic about him, quote-unquote, serving me or whatever in the comments. I don't even care. Like, there's a reason I decided to call myself the Controversial Thot for this series. Anyway, my partner is a black man, and he was extremely annoyed that none of the Black Lives Matter protesters in the area we were staying following our son's birth were actually black. His hypothesis was that the actual black people in the area were busy going to work, feeding their families, and living their lives. I've also run into this issue online where I've reshared, for example, George Floyd's surviving family's wishes, and then some white person will immediately speak over the surviving family. I believe what exactly happened, this was a while, like, feels like forever ago. It was probably just like a month or two ago. George Floyd's family had said, hey, these protests, riots, etc. aren't going to bring our family member back. Please stop doing them. And then a white man commented on that video, or yeah, it was a video that I had reshared, commented on that saying, you know, basically discounting, I don't remember the exact words, but basically discounting what the surviving family had said, and I got really annoyed by that, because what I'm doing is I'm boosting what, you know, people who are affected by this are actually saying, and then Mr. White Guy comes in and he's like, well, actually, and I'm just like, get off my post. But just, you know, I felt kind of sad having to do that because this is someone I've been friends with for years, but still, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be nice. Anyway, yeah, sometimes it gets pretty weird. Like this one post where the OP posited that the people who aren't attracted to people of a certain ethnicity are racist because they're choosing not to be attracted to them because they're ingrained with racist ideas. And here I was under the impression that we can't choose who we're attracted to, or does that only count if you're LGBTQIA+. Yeah, that was awkward. Like, it was awkward to read that post because it was about, if you don't find people of color attractive, that means that you're racist. Or if you don't find people of a particular ethnicity, you're racist because racist ideas have been ingrained in you and you're choosing not to find them attractive, and you may not think it's a choice, but it's actually a subconscious blah, 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 blah. And I do not buy into that at all. There are certain facial structures, facial features, body types, you know, hairstyles that we're all going to be attracted to or not attracted to. Or if you don't experience attraction at all, you're not going to be attracted to anybody. So, you know, that you're just automatically racist against everybody. Sorry, ace folks. Anyway, when I first started learning about this stuff, I remember I found it bizarre that in some circles, men just aren't allowed to speak out against misandry. Like, sexism against men isn't real because men are in a position of power. I remember getting lectured on this when I pointed out in a fantasy story I was editing, a girl's boyfriend being stated to have the same powers as her, but weaker, and how I hoped that sexism wasn't a running theme. Someone who was also reviewing this story with me said it wasn't really sexism because it's not against women, and to me that's another example of divisiveness, this whole us against them mentality. I can't stand up for discrimination against men because it's not really discrimination. Men just want everything to be about them. I can't rightly point out that my brothers are kind, generous, loving people without being accused of buying into the not all men mentality, which I have been accused of on Facebook. Like, not so much on Tumblr, which is surprising, but definitely on Facebook. There have been pages that have, like, when I pointed out, oh, well, my sister's husband is actually pretty cool and doesn't do any of this stuff that you're saying that men do. And they'll just be like, oh, so hashtag not all men. I'm like, I just think you're being a little bit unfair to half the population. Like, yeah, I do believe that while it's not all men, the fact that any men at all do bad stuff is bad, but the same can be said about women. There doesn't need to be a gender divide. Anyway, just because a group of people has social advantages does not make it okay to shit on them. They are not acceptable targets. They are human beings like you and me, and they deserve to be treated as individuals trying to navigate the world, like you or me. I don't want to minimize the real issue of male violence, but let's not throw a whole entire gender under the bus just because y'all have had bad experiences with men. Trust me, I have too. Also, women can be physically and emotionally abusive too, and that's just as much of a problem because we are equal and thus equally culpable. I can't believe I have to explain this shit. Like, this is like common sense 101, right? And I write joke songs and shitty emo poetry and satire scripts, and I'm pointing all of this out. And whereas people who are actually take themselves seriously are like, they're just like. Anyway, I feel like I've descended into soapboxing here, and that really wasn't my intention. I don't want to talk down to anyone. I'm just genuinely shocked that there are people who don't comprehend what I see as common sense. The mental gymnastics people will indulge in to other each other are wild. Also, if I can't refer to a fantasy world where men are explicitly stated to be weaker than women as sexist because the people being lessened are men, what do I call it? And if certain members of my partner's family don't like me because I look white, I'm actually half Vietnamese, but he says they don't care. If that's not really racism because it's against someone who's white passing, what is it? Like, if they're literally mad at him for having a baby with someone they perceive as a white woman, what do you call that? Most people involved in activism probably have good intentions and are doing the best they can with constantly evolving information. Some people struggle to keep up, but they've got the right idea. My problem is with people who use social justice as a platform to bully other people for not being good enough at being pure or good enough at being outspoken or whatever. I get fatigued easily from political and social issues, especially since my brain resists repetition, and I end up getting annoyed pretty quickly when the same thing is repeated at me more than once or twice, I say as I repeated myself more than once or twice in this very video. I have to put my friends on 30-day snoozes quite a lot of the time just so I can use certain platforms to relax and unwind. And some people would have you think I'm a bad person for doing these things to preserve what's left of my sanity. Uh-oh, I just mentioned sanity. Let's call ableism. Actually, you might as well call ableism on my entire band because it's called Crazy Loser in a Box. So, you know what? Whatever. Listen, I'm not a bad person for refusing to get riled up over every little thing. Despite how riled up I've gotten in this video, I actually don't get riled up over every little thing. If I don't speak out about an issue, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't care. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I feel it isn't my place to comment, or maybe people have tried to guilt me into caring so much that I actually don't care anymore. Maybe I have more immediate concerns at stake. If you want reasons to assume I'm a bad person, there's plenty more valid reasons than that. I'm not a pure or wholesome person. I've done some pretty shady shit. I'm sure many of us have to one degree or another, but picking on each other for not being pure enough or not trying hard enough to fit someone's ideal activism mold is always going to do more harm than good. I'm not the first person to become disillusioned, and I certainly won't be the last. And with that, I end my 20-minute rant. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what your thoughts on this Controversial Thought episode number 1 are. Yeah, let me know what you think of the name, of the subject matter. Let me know what your differing opinions are. I'm happy to read other perspectives. Let's try to be polite somewhat on this, because I guarantee if you're rude to me, I'm going to be sitting there reading the comments on my phone. I'm going to be reading them with my husband sitting next to me laughing at you, so please, let's be nice. Okay, anyway, cheers. Have a great rest of your day.